Welcome to Booked and Branded, the podcast where we dive into the world of entrepreneurship, personal branding, and building a business that feels as good as it looks. I'm Ellie, and each week we'll have inspiring conversations with founders, creatives, and changemakers from around the world, teaching both you and me how to do business and entrepreneurship better. Whether you're a freelancer, creative, or a business owner, this is your space to learn, get inspired, and to take action to build a business and a life that you love. Let's dive into it. Welcome to Booked and Branded. Today we are joined in the studio with Davinia. Davinia is the owner of Marbelous Marketing, a social media management business, and she works with clients all across the globe. She's also a travel content creator with a TikTok audience of over 25,000 followers. I'm excited to be chatting to Davinia today about how to go full-time as a freelance social media manager and build a sustainable lifestyle business that works for you. Welcome, Dee, and thanks for coming on the pod.
Thanks for having me. That is actually going to be my new alarm every morning. That'll motivate me every day.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, I'm bomb.
Yeah.
I'm awesome.
Yeah, I back that.
So, Dee, you have never worked for anyone before, which I love. That's such a girl boss move. You've only ever worked for yourself.
I have. Yeah.
That's really inspiring. At 25 years old. So can you take us back a little bit to the beginning and give us a bit of a background on your career and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, 100%. So I did an undergraduate in communications and media, and then I did a master's in global strategy and environmental health and sustainability. And that was kind of like during COVID. And I feel like, I was like 20, 21. I feel like I hadn't experienced everything I should have done during those years. So Bali was like one of the only places open during COVID, and I was like, right, I'm going to finish my master's degree there, going to use my student loan, like not live at my parents' house and just get a villa in Bali. And I had a return flight booked to the UK after 6 months, and that gave me like a time frame where I could be like, right, I either go home, get a full-time grad job, or I actually make something of myself, build something myself. And I think like having that time frame and taking myself out of my usual environment around entrepreneurs in Bali and having that time frame, I was kind of like, if I haven't made it by this date, I can get on that flight. But I never actually got on that flight, and I kind of like locked in for a few months and never looked back, I guess.
I wonder how much of like being in Bali, because they do say that you're like the sum of the average of the 5 people that you're around. And being in Bali, you must have been completely surrounded by entrepreneurs and people doing their own thing. Do you think that like it could have been any different if you'd been in the UK and maybe, been around more corporate jobs and that kind of thing and had that kind of pull? Do you think that it could have been different, or do you always think I would have worked for myself?
No, I think it would have been really different. I think when I was at uni, I was like, I always wanted a corporate job. Like if you ask any of my friends and family, I always wanted to like work up in like a big corporation. And that obviously never happened. But I think if I was at home, I would have done that, because it's such a different lifestyle. Like everyone is working 9 to 5s, whereas in Bali, we have the flexibility. We may be doing a Pilates class at 11, like meeting your friends for brunch, because you can work any hour of the day. So I think if I was around people working 9 to 5s, I would have been like, well, I'm just going to kind of do the same. So I think Bali and like moving to like a nomad community had such a big impact on that as well. 100%.
Do you also think that the runway of having that 6 months to make it work, do you think having that deadline was helpful for you in terms of like shifting over to the freelancer life? Like, could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, 100%. So I think sometimes when you look at entrepreneurship and being a freelancer, it's like, right, I have to match my corporate wage, or I have to make this much a year, I have to have this much in savings. And I think for me, having that 6-month time frame, and also just being like, right, I just need enough to live in Bali, which isn't as much as living in like a Western country or back in the UK. So I think I really broke that down into those small goals. So having just 6 months and just being like, right, I need to earn what I think is like £1,500 a month to live like a basic life in Bali, that really motivated me. Whereas I feel like if you're like in a corporate job or looking at going freelance, you like look at all these big problems and like big things you need to achieve. So I think having that 6-month period helped me so much, because it just like broke everything down. Whereas if I didn't have that flight booked, I would have been like, right, here's my big 5-year plan. I need to make 6 figures. Because you see it's all over Instagram. And I think what no one tells you is, yeah, these people are making 6 figures. But before that, they were only making £1,500 a month. You know, they probably gave themselves like monthly goals or weekly goals. So having that 6-month period and that flight but back, like really allowed me to focus on like the now and the present rather than worrying like, right, how am I going to get a mortgage in 5 years time? How am I going to earn this? So yeah, 100%. It really like broke it down for me without me even realizing, I think. And I think that's what I'd suggest to anyone who's looking to go into this. Like, just take small steps. Just take each day as it comes, or each week as it comes, each month as it comes, and don't worry about that big 5-year plan initially. If that makes sense.
I think that's fantastic advice. Like, have that runway and then not get overwhelmed by like the 5-year plan. Just be like, okay, what do I need to live right now, and how can I make that work? I think that's like incredible advice.
Yeah.
So who was your first social media client, or what kind of industry were they in, and how did you go about landing them?
So my first client was a vegan bacon company, and I think I literally charged them like £100 a month, and I think I was running all of their Instagram, creating all of their content, and I was like 20, and I was like, you know what, I just want experience, like I don't care, like it's also like so fun for me. So I think the fact that I was even getting paid £100, I was like, this is amazing. So yeah, I specialise in the food and beverage and travel industry. So that was my first client. And I found them through cold DMing. I remember like every morning when I was in a cafe in Bali, and I was like, right, I'm going to cold DM 20 businesses. I did that every single morning, I reckon for about 6 weeks, until I had enough clients. That was like part of my like first 6-month plan. And I just went for it, cold DMing any cafe I could find, any food and beverage brand I could find on Instagram. And I just sent them a really brief paragraph like, hi, I'm just starting out. Can I run your socials for like £100 a month? And I would say like 5% actually got back to me, and maybe only 2% of those became clients. But just having that consistency every single day, gave me the confidence as well. Because I think I have a big fear of rejection. So I was like, right, I'm just going to do 20 a day, like disassociate from the answer essentially. So that was, how I got my first client. And who they were.
That's amazing. I think we speak a little bit about exposure therapy and just exposing yourself to that rejection every day and just getting used to it and being like, hey, look, okay, cool. That means that I had one no today. That means I'm one step closer to getting a yes tomorrow.
God, 100%. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
I think that's such a big thing, that you have to be willing to put yourself out as a freelancer and as a business owner, and be willing to get the no's. I feel like in a normal quote unquote corporate job, you don't really have to experience that level of rejection.
Yeah. 100%. Especially like if you've come from like college and uni, you have all that academic validation, you get like this corporate validation, like you work your way up. There's kind of almost like no steps backwards in like an academic or corporate background. So when you get into freelancing, you kind of do have these weird steps backwards, but I think that's what makes it, and that's what makes you, all these no's make you more confident, like more passionate about what you do, and you're right, just lead you to the next yes as well. So,
100%. And it tastes so much sweeter, doesn't it, when you've had like 50 no's and you get that one yes, you're like
100%.
Okay, cool. So I know that you've been really successful using tools like Upwork. So Upwork can be a game changer for freelancers, but a lot of people struggle to stand out because it's such a high level of competition on those markets. So how have you made using Upwork work for you?
Yeah, so 100%. And I think a lot of people say Upwork, like, so competitive, like there's so many jobs that are posted every single day, like there's so many people in my industry. And it's kind of like, there's so many people in your industry because there's so many jobs available out there. Like if you refresh Upwork, there's a new job posted probably every few minutes. So I think once you've kind of like found your industry, find your niche. So I always specialize in like the travel and hospitality industry. So whether there's like a boutique hotel or a restaurant, you're always going to stand out if you specialize in that niche. So I think my number one tip would 100% be finding a niche on Upwork. And then my second thing would be, it's really hard not to talk about yourself when you're trying to sell yourself. So I think when you're on Upwork and you're finding these clients and you're applying for these jobs, at the end of the day, that client almost doesn't care initially in that first message about you. They want to know how you can help them. So I think a big change for me and what helped me get more clients on Upwork was just like making that big pivot. And when I was doing those initial proposals, telling people how I could help them rather than this is my like experience, I've done 2 of this, 3 of this. More like, this is how I can help you, these are the results I have got for a previous client. And just making that pivot within your niche and making sure the client is the priority, not necessarily like your CV and your background as well. They'd be my 2 tips.
I think that's a fantastic tip as well, like framing it of this is how I can help you, and really this is being confident in the value that you can deliver, and not being shy of that and saying, you know, these are the examples of how I've helped other people and I can help you. And I think, you know, such a key to marketing is normally a client has a problem, right? And we are going to help them solve that problem. So if you're coming from a place of service and like, hey, I can actually help you, I think it's always going to land well with potential clients.
100%. I know I always say this, but like every no is just making room for something better. So I feel like Upwork is actually really hard in terms of like rejection, because you either don't get responses or you don't hear back from people. So I think this in life as well, but it's just redirection, not rejection, 100%.
In terms of social media management, you are dealing with clients on more of a retainer basis. So managing multiple clients long term, I can imagine multiple content calendars, there's a lot going on. How do you stay organized and how do you stay on top of everything?
So I think for me, having a routine is so important. And I think something I've really learned over the last 6 months or so is that you can have like everything perfect in the business, but if that isn't reflected in your personal life as well, and you don't have consistency in your personal life, and you're not like self-aware, and you're not working on your personal foundations, I think that's what has made the biggest impact on my business and staying organized and staying on top of things. And I think a lot of people can start these businesses and build them up, but if in your everyday life you're maybe, you know, not consistent, like going to the gym, maybe not, I don't know, doing like inner work and things, I think it's really, really hard to stay on top of that business. So I think, yeah, a big pivot for me in the last 6 months is just being a little more self-aware in terms of, I know every entrepreneur says this, for like meditation or journaling or like whatever your thing is, you don't have to do exactly what everyone else says. You don't have to get up at 5 a.m. or whatever. But I think staying on top of things in your personal life has had a ginormous impact on my business. And just, I think every morning just reminding myself, like, when you're a freelancer, you just have to keep reminding yourself, like, I'm the only one who can grow this. I'm the only one who has the power to do this. You don't have like a boss to fall back onto. So I think it's kind of like having those positive affirmations every single day and being like, I can do this. Like, the only one that's going to save this business and grow this business is myself. And having that like self-confidence, I think, is also how I stay on top of things, stay organized, and kind of just having that self-respect for myself. Because I think if you have a corporate job, you can turn up and there might be a few days where you're like feeling ill, or like, you know, you're like flagging a little bit, and you have like a team to fall back on. But I think having that like self-respect as a freelancer and just being like, yeah, no one's going to save me, so you have to stay on top of it, and just reminding yourself of that like inner self-respect and those like basic fundamental foundations, and then applying that to your business is how I stay organized and stay on top of things. Because yes, it is a level of self-respect, I think, and when you understand that, that's when like your business grows the most. That makes sense.
I love that.
Was that a bit too like personal answer?
No, I love that, because I think it's mindset is such a key part of being an entrepreneur, and I have already found that, you know, I'm pretty early in the game compared to you, but your mindset is everything. And like
100%.
you're right, like there's no one else coming to do that work for you. There's no one else coming to save you. You have to save your damn self. Which is really scary as well. And like when you're fully put in charge of, you know, how much income you're bringing in, that there's this certain pressure and like kind of disbelief almost. Like I've been struggling with disbelief of myself and like, can you really do this? So those positive affirmations, I think, and that's something I've been using as well. Affirmations, journaling, getting your mindset right, I think does set you up for the whole day and week. And I think routine as well, making sure that you've got a really healthy routine that makes you feel grounded. So
100%.
I think that's fantastic.
I think like knowing yourself as well, because like for example, you'll see all these people being like, I wake up at 5 a.m. and I do this, and it's like, well, are you more productive in the evening? Like you don't always have to listen to like these gurus online, and just find what works for you. And that does take a lot of trial and error as well in terms of like routine and like what platforms you want to use, what scheduling platforms. I think never copy anyone else in this industry, and just always do what feels right for you and what works for you. I think that's another like thing that took me a while to learn, that you can't just copy what everyone else is doing, and find like your own rhythm and your own groove. And that really helps in terms of organization and things like that as well.
Exactly. And like there are no rules, right? Like just because other people are waking up, you know, the 5 a.m. club and the runs and the ice baths, like if that doesn't work for you, if you need to like get up at 8 and listen to your body, and if you're a bit more of a night owl, like just finding what works for you and
100%.
and honoring yourself in that, and not like forcing anything. Okay, pivoting a little bit to your content creation career. So 25,000 followers on TikTok. Incredible. Could you tell me a little bit about how you've gone about growing the account? We've spoken a little bit about hooks before. I think that's such a key part of content creation, finding that hook. Can you dive into that a little bit for me?
Yeah, 100%. So I think with TikTok and content creation, so many people want to get into it, but they just can't make that first step. And again, when I got on that plane to Bali during COVID, I was like, I'm going to post 3 videos a day. I wouldn't even want to look back now and look at those videos, because I know they're probably awful. Like, I know the quality is so bad, but I just started and I posted 3 videos a day for about 2 months, and I hit like my first 10,000 followers in those 2 months. And those first videos probably weren't very good, but I was so consistent with it, and I looked at what worked on my page and what didn't work on my page, and that's how I learned, you know, people want a visual hook, people want a key hook. So I think in terms of content creation, you do just need to start, and your first video, you will look back and it will be absolutely awful and you'll never want to watch it ever again. You do just need to start. You do just need to be consistent with it. And yeah, along the way, like I've learned so many things. I've done like so many trainings, like got coaches and things along the way to help me with that. And I think again, like I said earlier, like looking at the bigger picture, you don't need to worry about that in the beginning. Like just post that first video. I think also like going back a little bit to what I said earlier, like when you're creating this content, editing this content, you have to remember this isn't for you. Obviously, you want to enjoy the process. Like content creation is such a fun thing, but this isn't for you to sit and watch back. Like this isn't for you and your friends. If you do want to stop people scrolling and do get that hook, like what's going to interest them? And I think something that you always need to think about is like, who actually am I trying to reach? Am I trying to reach, like for me, it's travelers, it's travel brands that I want to work with, it's hotels, it's restaurants. So I think what's going to stop them? What's going to stop them in their scroll? And with the hooks and things, you do need to reach people in those first 5 seconds. And you can do that in so many different ways, whether it's a visual hook, like a really cool video, like the clearest water in Bali, if it's text on screen, if it's a voiceover. And I think you really need to put yourself in the position of like your viewers and your audience, be like, what is their pain points? Like one of my friends owns a travel app, and I was talking to her about her strategy the other day, and a lot of her videos was like, this is our travel app, this is what we do. But it's like, if people don't know you, they're not going to look for this app. So you put yourself in that position. You can create a video like, 5 of the top hostels in Vietnam, and you can move away from your product. You don't always have to be this hard selling, and you can find these really interesting hooks, like I said, whether it's visual, on screen, and just think like, what is your audience's pain point, and then how can you put that into like a short quote? How can you put that into the first 5 seconds of your video? And I think when it comes to hooks and things, I know I said this to you the other day, I think you really need to think of like your clear unique selling point. And I think, if we talk about influencers, or if we talk about brands and businesses, we'll be like, like for example, Grace Beverly, like she owned Tala or whatever, like that's like her key unique selling point. And there's so many people like that who kind of have that tagline. And I think when you find that, and you find that one thing that's unique to you, or the one thing that makes you stand out. For example, I know I've tried a few, and one of them was like, I never got on my flight back home to London. Once you find that, make that your hook. Use it 100 times over. I know it feels like you're repeating yourself, but your audience, they might not follow you yet. They might just come across like a few of your videos a week for now. So I think don't be scared to repeat that hook as well. And like really hone in on things. And if they work, do it again, repeat it again, post the same video with a different audio or different text on screen. And don't be scared to just like generate that content and get it out there. That makes sense.
That makes so much sense. I think a lot of the time, like that repeating, I think people are like, my followers have already seen that or whatever. But if you're wanting to get on the For You page, like no one's going to know your content. No one's going to know your story. So like not being afraid to just like use that hook and use it again and again and again. And then I guess you kind of become known for that as well. Like you were saying, that becomes your brand recognition. And people want to stop. There's a lady that owns a bakery. I've completely forgotten her name, but she does day in the life of a bakery owner. And
the Brookies cookies.
Yeah,
like we both know that hook.
Exactly, so good, because I'm like, I always want to stop and see what she's been up to that day, even though she posts it every day.
100%. And like, because she's built such a good relationship with her audience. Like she had a baby recently, I think. Like I would never watch like I'm pregnant video. Like that just doesn't attract me, because I know her so well from her bakery videos now. Like I'm sitting and watching what she's getting up to. Like she's built such a good relationship with her followers as well through like that USP and that hook. So once you've got that hook and you've built it up, you can then like navigate that and create different content and new hooks, but find your one thing and like roll with that for a few months, and then you can pivot after that as well. And I think that's so important.
100%. And I think people want to go on the journey with you. Like you say, like you don't necessarily care about baby videos, but now you're like, oh, it's Brookie who makes the cookies, and I want to hear about how her baby is.
100%. And when my sister lived in Brisbane, as soon as I got to Brisbane, I was like, I need to go to Brookie's cookies. Like I don't even know if they tasted good, but I was like, I watch her day in the lives every day, so I just have to go.
Sponsored by Brookie's cookies. Awesome. Okay. So we're going to do a quick fire Q&A to wrap up.
Okay.
So what is the best investment that you've made in your business?
So before I started, I got a social media management course, and I think and it had a Facebook group and a community. And I think having that community when I was first starting out as a freelancer was one of the best investments. I think sometimes when you just spend a lot of money in the beginning, it just motivates you to do something with it, if that makes sense. Sometimes you just need to spend the money. You're like, right, well, I spent so much money on this course, I actually need to do something with it. So that social media management course, and then like the Facebook community off the back of that, because it can be quite lonely being a freelancer. So that's one of the best investments I've made.
Amazing. Dream client that you'd love to work with?
I think for me, it would have to be something like Glastonbury Festival, because I love what they stand for. I love sustainability, the environmental side, and the community side of it. 100%. They'd be a dream client.
One book, podcast, or resource that you recommend to freelancers?
Oh, I do like this question. I mean, I think it could be for anyone, not sorry freelancers, but going back to what I said about like the building the foundations in your personal life before you can grow a business, the book would be The Untethered Soul, and then the podcast would be the Mel Robbins podcast. I'm just a big believer. I think you need your personal foundations in place, not before you can start a business, but alongside that as well, because otherwise you can get caught up in like priorities and lose that balance. So I'm a big believer of that. Untethered Soul, the book, and then the Mel Robbins podcast.
So final one, best piece of advice in one sentence.
I think what's always meant for you will find you, and rejection is redirection. Like if you don't get that client, it's not meant for you. It's something better on the horizon.
I love that. And on that note, thank you so much, Dee. I've had so much fun talking with you.
Thank you.
How can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. And they can find me on Instagram at Marbelous Marketing, TikTok at Davinia, and LinkedIn at Davinia Fielding Cook.
Thank you so much, Dee.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap of Booked and Branded. If you loved it, or even kind of just liked it, feel free to DM me at Ellie J. Neal. I love a voice memo, so drop in and say hi. If you're feeling generous, please leave a rating, a review, or even just chuck us a follow. It helps me keep bringing you these conversations. Until next time, stay booked, stay bold, and don't be afraid to make some noise.